Now that you're more familiar with the iAbility program and what happens during a 9-month training, we will give you some tips for your application. You must be 18 years or older, and you must be a current San Francisco resident. We ask for verification of these two requirements in the form of a California ID, which you must attach to your application. You must also be currently receiving services through BHS or Behavioral Health Services. If you're not sure whether you are currently receiving services through BHS, we highly recommend that you ask your clinician. You must also submit proof that you graduated from high school or the equivalent. A photocopy of your GED certificate is acceptable. You must also be sure that you can commit to the full 9-month training program, with a schedule of about 7 to 12 hours per week. 16 is actually the high range, and it's pretty unlikely that you will receive a schedule of 16 hours per week. On average, participants work 7 to 12 hours per week. You must also provide consent to your clinician that will allow the iAbility staff to reach out to them for your clinical reference. Before submitting your application, you should also consider whether or not you can meet the graduation requirements. In order to graduate, program participants must meet the following requirements. Maintain 85% attendance or better. So you should ask yourself, can I attend regularly during the course of this 9-month training? And if any circumstances in your life will prevent you from doing that, maybe you should consider applying for the next cohort. You should also be able to attain an average of 75% or better on quizzes. You should also be able to meet your vocational goals. And really, your vocational goals are tailored to your needs and plans, so this requirement shouldn't be too difficult to meet. And lastly, you should be able to follow program rules, and program rules are pretty straightforward. Now, some important dates. Please note that these dates are listed on the front page of the application form. The application due date is February 1st. This means that I must receive your application form no later than 5 p.m., which is what time hireability closes. If you submit your application at 5:05, I'm afraid that you have not met the due date. Interviews will be conducted from January 1st to February 29th, and they are on priority basis. And please note that the sooner you submit your application, the sooner we can schedule you for an interview. You will be notified about the status of your application before March 4th. We'll try to notify you as soon as possible so that you can make the necessary plans in order to join the program. The first day of instruction for Help Desk is March 14th, and the first day of instruction for Desktop is March 28th. Please note that you must have an intake meeting sometime before the first day of instruction. Your intake meeting will be conducted by Nancy Gobaliza, our intake coordinator. So how should you submit your application? First of all, you can fax it at 415-920-6877. I should mention that this is the least reliable way to submit your application form. Sometimes the fax machine can act up on either end. We highly recommend that you either email it at this email address or mail or drop it off to hireability. That's 1234 Indiana Street, San Francisco, California, 94107. Emailing your application form or mailing or dropping it off to hireability have been the most reliable ways of getting your application form to us. Again, you're more than welcome to fax it, but historically, the most issues have come up via fax. So the application process, first of all, you will submit your application form. We do provide a checklist on the third page of the application form, so please make sure that you use it. Make sure that you also attach the necessary documents that we ask for, as well as a copy of your resume, or if you have not completed a resume, you're more than welcome to list your work history on the second page of the application form. So if you have properly completed your application form, we are likely to give you a call and maybe conduct a phone interview. And if that goes well, after the phone interview, we may invite you for an in-person interview here at 1234 Indiana Street. At that interview, we will ask you some questions to determine whether or not this program is right for you. We will also conduct a skills assessment to determine whether you can perform the necessary functions of the training. After the interview, we may contact your clinician. Again, please make sure that we have the necessary authorization to be able to speak to your clinician. Here are some more important tips. First of all, please make sure that you submit everything. On the third page of the application form, we have included a checklist so that you can make sure that you've submitted all of the necessary paperwork. Also, please make sure that you fill out your application completely. If there are any questions or fields in the application form that you're not sure how to fill out, please just ask us. I have provided my contact information on the application form. You can also find my contact information on HireAbility's website. Please also make sure that you read and follow directions carefully. We've tried to make the directions as easy as possible to follow, but again, if you have any questions, please contact me. Lastly, please make sure that you fill out your own application form. The application form can be a bit complex, but as you saw, there are multiple phases to the application process. We will ask you about the content of your application form at the interview, so you want to be able to make sure that you can speak to that content. If you have someone else complete your application form, you may not be able to speak to the content of the application. Now here are some tips for your references. Again, please remember that you are required to submit both types of references. You must provide a professional reference, such as an employer, a teacher, volunteer coordinator, someone who can speak to your professional experience. You must also provide a recent clinical reference. Some examples may include a therapist, psychiatrist, a case manager, someone who can speak to your recovery process. And I'd really like to emphasize the point that you must submit both types of references. You must submit a professional reference and a clinical reference. You cannot submit one or the other. You must submit both. I want to close by saying that iAbility is a supportive environment. We've set up curriculum lessons that teach trainees a lot of vital technical skills that will be useful to any job. We are also open to helping you learn additional things that you're interested in. All you have to do is ask. I'd also like to mention that if you're invited for an in-person interview, we will look more favorably at your application if you're able to speak to why you want to join iAbility. How will iAbility enhance your resume? What aspects of yourself do you hope to develop while you're in the program? We will also ask you about your recovery process and your ability to work with a team.